Hey, happy Friday and happy Digest Day. I had so much fun putting these digests together last season that I'm doing it again because it's such a nice chance for me to look around and look at what's inspiring me and then share that with you. So if you have enjoyed these, tune in on Fridays for short and sweet digests, particularly this season, looking for inspiration on people who've changed, who've made pivots, who have had big decisions thrust upon them or have chosen themselves to switch it up and do something different. Hoping you'll follow along and be inspired as well every Friday. Hey, happy Friday! As I am recording this, it is 70-something degrees out there. Hallelujah. It feels like we are finally letting go of winter. Spring is here, inching our way towards summer. My peonies are popping up. And if you know my love of peonies, particularly this one peony plant that I have, you will know how important this is to me. Every year around this time, I do have to repost my peony incident story. So if you've not heard me read that on Lake Effect, find the link in the show notes there. Maybe a turning point for me as a mother. I am coming on the last Cream City Digest of season 7. And, I am looking back on all of the women who have been on the show since January. And I am so flippin' proud of all of these women and the conversations that we had and the stories that I've shared on this podcast, because these are some incredible women. I say it every week, but it is really true. And there are so many ways to support them and to get in touch with them and to meet them in real life. That is one thing I love about Milwaukee. This is not like your big old podcast where you'll never ever have a chance to meet these people, but you might learn something from them by listening. No. You can meet them in the wild, in their stores, in their gardens, at the events that they organize, because they are community members just like you and me. I am thinking of Kristen Bry, who I started the season with, who since I aired that episode back in January, has her own new podcast out, Point Taken, where they explore and debate and offer insight into the world of Wisconsin and national politics. So be sure to like and subscribe that podcast. I'm thinking about Meg Bruzan and how she is getting her hands dirty over in the gardens at We Got This because summer is around the corner. I'm thinking about Caitlin Hensey and her story of stolen identities and how I still need to change all my darn passwords. It is on my list to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm thinking of Emerald Mills hosting her diverse dining events in her space, Diverse Dining Market, and how I took my dad there and we had the most delicious breakfast sandwich. So get on down there on Wisconsin Avenue if you've not been. I'm thinking about Jamie Phoenix and the compliments I keep getting on the jeans I got from her store, Ultra Twist Vintage, out in West Allis. If you've not been there for one of her happy hours, stop in and say hello to her. I'm thinking about Ashley Jordan and her book, The Unhappy Achiever, Rejecting the Good Girl Image and Reclaiming the Joy of Inner Fulfillment, and how that just seems to be on point right now. Enough with the good girl nonsense. Let's just be authentically ourselves. I'm thinking about Eva Welch over at Street Angels and how, hooray, the weather is turning, which means that the showers of hope are back on, the water is running, and they are doing the good work of keeping our friends on the streets fed and clothed and showered, and how much support they will continue to need. So if that is something that you care about, reach out to them to see how you can get involved. I'm thinking of Jamila Riley and not only the beautiful, beautiful creations that she makes in her shop, but about how I had the chance to pull over when I was on my way to Costco and I had no kids in the car, and I pulled over at the Sherman Phoenix because I passed that on the way up to Germantown or Menominee Falls, and I just walked in and gave her the biggest hug. And is she a good hugger? And did I need that on that day? Yes, I did. And just the space that she creates in her shop and the warmth and the glow that you feel upon entering. I would encourage everyone to get over to meet Jamila if you have a chance and join the clique. Get a pair of her earrings and join the clique. You'll know what I mean when you get there. I'm thinking about Lisa Williams and Cheryl Jewick of the Persisters and how they are persisting. Week in and week out, the action sheets keep coming. So if you are feeling frustrated and anxious and want to do something, you want to go back and listen to that episode and get on their mailing list. I'm thinking about Stephanie Ciotti and Milwaukee Babbling Babes and how they are creating beautiful spaces for mothers to gather, new moms, old moms alike, to build community, to be in connection, and to make some new friends, because it does take a village. It's a cliche, but it does. And how else do you get to know your village except by putting yourself out there? So lots of events on their calendar this summer as well. I'm thinking about my dear friend Nell Benton and the bravery that it takes to transition from one career to another, especially when it's in an entirely different field and when you're at the height and the pinnacle of your career, right? But just stepping away from something because it's not sitting right with your heart any longer, and how much courage that takes to do that. And I'm constantly inspired by Nell. I am thinking of Miranda Malone, the founder of the Milwaukee Motherless Collective, and how she has monthly meetups for motherless women and also a motherless Mother's Day brunch coming up Saturday, May 10th. So if that's something that might be helpful to you or someone you know, tickets are on sale. I'm thinking of Harper Martin and this idea that you are never too old to try something new, especially when it comes to creativity. I dare you, listeners, pick up a paintbrush this summer. Pick up a pen, pick up a crayon, pick up a pencil. Try something new with your hands. I love the idea of process art. It's not about the finished product, it's about the experience of it. I am thinking about Chantel Riley, owner of Dignity with Departure, death doula, and the death cafes that she hosts, as well as the workshops that hopefully get us all talking a little bit more about death and being comfortable with death so that we can really live into these years that we have on earth. I am thinking about Dasha Kelly Hamilton and how the creatives are going to save us again with their words, with their inspiration, and with the permission to follow their lead into creativity. I'm thinking about Sarah Haas and what's coming up next week, which is the Women's Entrepreneurship Week, Monday through Friday, May 5th through 9th. Lots and lots of workshops, sessions, fun creative classes, dance parties, all the ways to network and collaborate with cool women around the city, and tickets are still on sale. SheStandsTallMKE.com. If you don't have your ticket yet, what are you waiting for? Hop over to that site and pick yours up today. And I'm thinking of the story from this week, Tonda Thompson, and how sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, get up off the floor and keep going. I love that story so much. And I love the stories from each and every one of these women about how they pivoted. Whether that was a move, a lot of them moved from the West Coast back to Wisconsin. Whether that was a life experience, whether it was a death, whether it was a birth, whether it was an election, all of the things that got these women pivoting and turning them in a new direction where they didn't necessarily know what was coming next, but they just took the next right step. I hope, listeners, that this season has been helpful in thinking about the universality of pivots and how that relates to you and where you're at. Whatever road you're traveling down, maybe it's time to pivot. And if it is, know that you are in good company with women who have done this right here in our community. All right, I will be back next week when I am transitioning the podcast for the next 4 weeks to be in conversation with a friend and a psychologist and a fellow mom, Thekla Brumder Ross, who is a clinical psychologist and a national leader in addiction medicine, as well as a strategic advisor to the NIH. She advises behavioral health tech companies on product development, guides health systems in implementing evidence-based practices, and teaches self-compassion to medical students and reproductive healthcare providers. So we are going to be talking about what it's like right now for us as adults in this digital age, how we can be more compassionate towards ourselves, what that looks like, how we can be more mindful with our technology use, how possibly we can step away from it a little more, particularly as we head into summer. And I don't know, quite honestly, where this conversation is going to go, which is maybe what's most exciting about this for me. I know I'm leading up our conversation in May to try my hand at a full-on detox in June, which means taking Instagram and Facebook off my phone and seeing what that feels like. But before I do that, we're going to talk about what might go into that. We're going to talk about the brain and what's going on in the brain, some of the science behind what's happening when we're on screens, when we see those little red dots pop up, what the screens and what social media is doing to our brains, and the numbing and unpacking the word addiction that flies around a lot in the face of technology and screens these days. And then we're going to talk about self-compassion. We're going to talk about noticing how we use our technologies and how we respond and how we give ourselves grace or how we don't as it relates to this. We're going to talk about being idle versus being productive. We're going to talk about distractions. And then we're going to hopefully, by the end of May, come up with some practical ideas and suggestions as to how we can approach our technology use in a way that feels more generative, healthier, and more mindful. So we'll see what happens. Maybe by the end of May, I'll say, you know what? I don't need to give it up because I think I can manage it. Or maybe I'll say exactly the opposite, like I am ready to let this go. Who knows? But follow along and maybe you can try it with me. I would love to have an accountability partner or 2 or 20. If you think you might want to try it as well, follow along during May as we talk about all of these things. And then on the Fridays when I give my kind of debrief on whether I think I can really do it or not. We'll see. But I'll be back for sure with more guests the first week in June, and I have an incredible season of women who are bringing the joy to Milwaukee. Got these interviews lined up. They're happening right now, and I can't wait to introduce you to these women and the joy that they are bringing. So make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter so you don't miss a thing, because I might not be posting on socials. creamcitydreams.com, and at the very bottom of that homepage is the sign up for my newsletter. So make sure you're on it and that you're subscribed to the pod wherever you get your podcasts. All right, I'll be back next week, Wednesday. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.